Say that basically the basic strategy towards dealing with extremists is by satisfying the needs of the people whose needs, unsatisfied, create extremists. So that if you're talking about a nation like Somalia, for example, where this thing comes from, you have a nation which was either looted or manipulated by more powerful powers. But the West had no interest in Somalia until it became a trouble spot. Or rather, it did have interest, but the interest was to exploit it, insofar as it was possible to exploit it. So, even as we know, when the trouble started in Somalia, and the Islamic Courts government took over in Somalia, and it was too Islamic for a lot of people in the West, you can tell us a lot more than I can about the history of Somalia, but at a certain point the United States decided it would be a good thing to have the Ethiopian army come in and restore order, which immeasurably complicated the situation. Against the advice of our colleague Terrence Lyons and so forth, they brought the Ethiopians in. Well, it seems to me there may come a time when there's nothing to do with the extremists except fight it. I'm not a pacifist. I think there are times when people have to fight. But my point in this whole discussion is then that time only comes when you have exhausted other measures. And the measures, when it comes to a country like Somalia, and dealing with a al-Shabaab threat, and so forth in Somalia, it seems to me it has to do with helping the Somalis get what they want, what they need. Can the United States do that? No, I don't think so. The United States does that, it will be seen as, and will be in fact, a move by the US empire to shore up its position in Somalia. Could an international organization, could a regional organization do that if there were, as Johan Galton keeps telling us, strong, legitimate regional organizations accepted? Yes. Could an international organization do that if its legitimacy was also accepted? Yes. So, in dealing with extremists, the problem is whether it's dealing with terrorism or dealing with crime or dealing with any other immediate threat, there's such a strong tendency to say, we have to deal with this in the short term, in the short run. We have to do something, we have to stop these people from doing whatever they're trying to do in the short run. And then, of course, we also have a long-run policy where we deal with the people's needs and where we deal with the underlying causes of the conflict. The short run eats up the long run. There is no long-run policy. The long-run policy for stopping violence against the American empire is to eliminate the American empire. And to replace it with something that we would probably all be a lot more happy, comfortable, prosperous, and safe. America as a great power in a nation among other great powers. But the fact that we're hooked on the empire idea and on the empire behavior really means that we can't, we're trapped. At the moment, we're trapped in it. It also means that all we've got is short-term policy. There is no long-term policy to change the underlying, configuration. So what do we need in the way of a long-term policy? We need the empire to be replaced by a legitimate international order. How do we work towards a legitimate international order? How do we reform the UN so that it's a worthwhile organization instead of the kind of joke that it often is now? How do we empower the General Assembly so that the UN doesn't equal the Security Council, which equals a few great powers? I mean, those are the questions that are the long-run questions which never get answered as long as we're obsessed with the short term. What should a reasonable, medium-term even, African policy be for the United States, for the West, for the international community? It's you're going to figure it out, Hussein. I'm getting too old. You're going to figure it out. And when that happens, then we won't be just trapped in the short term. We won't be, oh, you know, because I know how you feel about Al-Shabaab, and I agree with you about that. But if that's all we've got to deal with, this is a recipe for perpetual conflict, and by the way, not even a conflict that we're going to win. Because as long as those needs are, as long as the people are bleeding after you, as long as identity needs and material needs and dignity needs and all the rest are unsatisfied, that's going to generate extremism forever.